Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
I'm Callum.
And tonight we are reviewing the entire Season 1 of The Mandalorian. A couple months ago now.
It's been a while.
We reviewed the first 3 episodes when they had just come out. So if you haven't heard that episode, that was episode 52 of the Tuesday Review. I recommend listeners go back and listen to that first, because even though we only talk about the first 3 episodes, it's a good introduction to our thoughts on the series. We talk a lot about, Boba Fett and the Mandalorian culture and all that, and Disney's handling of Star Wars and that. So check out that first if you haven't listened to that. But this episode, we're going to just give our thoughts on the whole season, the whole first season. Yeah, and if you haven't heard our other Star Wars episodes, which I think everyone who is interested has listened to them, everyone who's not interested hasn't listened to them. But yeah, check out our other Star Wars episodes. And if you're a new listener, welcome. You're our cousin now.
That's it. Welcome to the family.
This is the way.
Welcome, foundlings.
Also, this is something I forgot to talk to you guys off air, but I'm thinking of retiring the Last Jedi alarm. Just because I'm kind of fucking sick of it.
To be fair, it's kind of redundant now.
Yeah, at this point, we've talked about Star Wars so much. So if for listeners, if there are any new listeners or, if people have forgotten...
Can we have the Mandalorian sound piece?
Oh, the doodaloo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so actually, let's... Because originally we had the old show, Man vs. Movies, and then that morphed into the Tuesday Review, and we talked about Star Wars like every episode, even in non-Star Wars related episodes. And
every episode's a Star Wars related episode.
Yeah, and every episode we like shit on The Last Jedi and talked about how bad it was. And it got to a point where we were just talking about The Last Jedi so much that we were like, we need some sort of alarm to go off every time we mention it. And so I used the blockade runner sound from the original Star Wars to signify like every time we talked about it. And then that, like, because we've been talking about Star Wars so much and I re-uploaded all the Star Wars reviews, I used that sound as like the introduction sound. It's like, hey, here we go, everyone, kind of thing.
Prepare yourselves.
Yeah, and so for listeners who have heard the last, however many episodes have all been Star Wars reviews with the introductory alarm sound, and I think, I'll start this Mandalorian episode with that as well. But like after this, every time we mention Star Wars, like we'll just try to get back on track, maybe. Yeah. But another problem is like it's so ingrained into our discussion we have, and because of Disney, who owns everything, it's so connected to all the franchises, and so it'll come up every episode. But I think we'll retire the.
Yeah, it's a little tired.
Yeah.
Quick question. Did you end up watching Bad Boys for Life yet?
No, not yet. Maybe next week. I
haven't seen it.
It ends up being a better Star Wars movie than The Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi.
Well, we saw 1917, and that was a much better Star Wars movie than The Last Jedi. But that's not hard to...
It's a war movie. It's also a lot easier.
But,
no,
the bars are low,
We might talk about it on a news episode, or if when we're not talking about a feature review one day.
Oh, yeah, one day.
It ends up being a good Star Wars movie, which was surprising.
Well, considering how bad Star Wars has gotten, it's nothing surprising anymore. But yeah, I think we'll retire the alarm. And yeah, I think after this, we'll... I'm not making any promises, but episodes from now on will be less Star Wars, because we've talked about so much, will be less Star Wars-centric. But of course, when they announce the Obi-Wan show or whatever, we'll have to scramble and do an episode about that. But yeah, until something substantial comes out, we'll probably lay off Star Wars for a little bit. I say that, and then next episode.
Did you hear what George finally said?
Yeah. Yeah, so who knows? But yeah, we'll take a break from Star Wars after this episode, I think. So yeah, we're talking about The Mandalorian, aka the Baby Yoda show.
That's it.
Yeah, so...
Spicy meme material.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's really the only reason people watch the show. Let's face it.
You can make an argument.
Yeah. I know was it last episode or the episode before, we were joking about how Star Wars movies from now on should just be 2.5 hours of Baby Yoda. And someone on the internet made like an opening crawl for Rise of Skywalker, with the yellow letters going across the black.
Yeah.
And it says, episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, Baby Yoda has taken over the galaxy and restored faith in humanity. That's it. it's 2 hours and 22 minutes of just Baby Yoda. You wouldn't even complain, would you?
No.
No, I probably wouldn't complain that much.
Like,
yeah.
you know, I think at this point, like we said, I think in the first Rise of Skywalker review episode we did, Baby Yoda is the only thing holding Star Wars together at the moment.
It's the only thing Star Wars fans can agree on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I have some spicy hot takes later on, so...
oh, look, Baby Yoda's not a perfect savior, which we'll get into.
yeah.
But better than what was the
Jar Jar?
the European mechanic in Rise of Skywalker?
Oh, Babu Frick.
Yeah, better than Babu
Yeah.
Frick.
Oh, God. Like I said, I have some spicy hot takes about Babu Frick and Baby Yoda, so people might not like it, but it's important to the discussion. One thing is, though, like, there's nothing else on Disney Plus now. No, like, original-wise.
I'm sitting here just waiting for The Simpsons to get fixed.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Hurry up
just
and fix it.
The Marvel...
Tap on my watch.
Yeah, the Marvel
Disney.
shows don't come out for another few months, I don't think. So it's like now your subscription, unless you're watching all the old cartoons and stuff, which is worth it, but there's so much new content on Netflix and Amazon. Like, I don't have time to go back and watch my old favorite cartoons and Disney movies. So Disney Plus now is largely goes unused. Yeah.
And look, really, I'm keeping my sub for now because I want to watch The Simpsons, but I'm not going to use it until I got The Simpsons.
Yeah. But, you know, like, they should have maybe planned it out more, so it's like you get The Mandalorian and then another original show to bridge the gap until the Marvel stuff
I will
starts.
say, can I just say,
Yeah.
I want to defend, there is an original that I actually kind of enjoyed. What was that utensil from the latest Disney Toy Story movie?
Oh, that's
Oh, Forky?
Yeah, there's like Forky lessons, and they're like little shorts. I watched
like PSA kind of thing.
I watched. There's like what is computer. There's like a whole bunch of them where like the toys explain to Forky a premise,
Okay.
and I was like, you know what? I watched one. It was like 5 minutes. I was like, not bad.
Okay, I'll check those out.
The originals, they're really high quality.
And
Voice actors.
The
return.
other one, the original is the Jeff Goldblum,
which is actually really good.
I haven't seen it.
I watched the
good.
first episode the other day. Pardon my voice. I watched the first episode the other day, and I wasn't sure he was going to go as weird as he is.
Oh,
but he goes full weird Jeff Goldblum, like with
so
the
weird.
sounds and the weird purring.
yeah.
And he goes, like he does all the. He goes 100% Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like 200%.
Yeah.
He turns it up to 11.
Yeah.
It's glorious. And it's also educational, much like the Forky.
That's it.
Disney's all about that.
I feel
and they
like-
got the National Geographic stuff.
I feel like Disney Plus is a good idea, and we've got some good originals, but for a company worth as much as they are, they could be pumping out a lot more content.
yeah.
It's not a drop in the bucket for them.
Yeah. We'll talk about this in, like, when we talk about the Mandalorian proper, but it's like, they need to be spending more money.
They need to be Netflix, maybe not quite Netflix levels of just releasing everything they can, but they should be releasing a few things a week instead of like maybe one thing a month. Like, what's the...
Yeah. They need to be...
Because that's how you don't keep your subscribers by only doing like a monthly content drop, you know?
Yeah.
I think they need a plan. You know what I mean? Like they need a rollout plan of content.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they have that.
Yeah, of course they do. But
at the moment, it seems like we dropped the Mandalorian.
One.
Yeah, we dropped the Mandalorian to get people excited, and now it's just the wait until the Marvel shows start. That's what it feels like.
Yeah,
at least.
Like they dropped. To be fair to the service, there was a lot they released initially, like with the old cartoons and stuff.
Yeah,
but they need the brand new 2020 shows.
Yeah, the original
coming out more consistently.
Yeah.
Anyway, to Disney Plus, to
the Mandalorian. Yeah. So full spoilers. I think everyone's seen the show at this point, but spoiler warning just in case, and it's probably spoiler warning for other Star Wars stuff too. So there's so much to talk about, and I've got lots of notes and different points. But one thing I thought would start is when we initially talked about the show when the first 3 episodes came out, we were surprised that they were only like half an hour to 40 minutes long. Later episodes got a bit longer.
Got up to like 40-something minutes.
I think one was 50. So yeah, like one thing I wanted from the show was to be more of a hour-long drama, character drama. It didn't get to that.
No.
But we got a bit more in terms of running time. I could start anyway. Do you guys want to start in any specific place, or?
I guess we can talk about the overall. We'll start with. We'll start very basic.
Yeah.
Well, let's start about the overall tone of the show, and did we like it?
Well, we talked about that, in the first 3 episodes, and how it's like visually, the costumes and the sets, you know, and the weaponry looks really good. But I feel like the way the show's shot and structured and the way the story is told feels cheap. And like I said in that earlier episode, it's a Disney Channel, it's a 90s Disney Channel show.
Yeah.
But in 2020 premium streaming world.
Yeah, no, I actually loved the show.
Yeah.
I loved it a lot. There are problems with it, but I agree with that. Like I can't look you in the eyes and say no, you're wrong. Like it definitely has that 90s 2000s made for TV feel.
Yeah, and it's like I said in the earlier episode, like it's because of its like monster of the week kind of adventure of the week style of storytelling. Yeah. If you miss an episode, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Which in the 80s and 90s, that's how most shows were made. It's like an adventure every week. You know, if you missed an episode, it didn't matter because the next episode just picks up and there's just another adventure. And that's what The Mandalorian is doing. And that's not a bad thing. But in the age of premium
it is
cable
it's an older way to do things.
Yeah. And especially because, you know, back in the day, you had like 26 episode seasons to fill out months of programming on a network television station.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like you've got like they spend a lot of money on, you know, 10 episodes or something. The Mandalorian's only 8 episodes. And so for me personally, there's no reason for it to keep a 26 episode filler adventure of a week feel.
I mean,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I know people are like, oh, shut up, it's a great show. But
it does feel like
for me, watching it, I enjoyed the show, but
there was one episode specifically that just gave me almost like a classic Star Trek episode of the week vibe. Like there's an episode where they go to a space prison and they have to.
Oh yeah, that I didn't. Everyone said that was the strongest episode. I felt it was the weakest. One of the weaker. Out of 8 episodes, 4 of them are weak. But that was for me. I didn't like that episode.
I didn't mind it. I just it felt for me. It felt very much like a.
Yes, I'm gonna have to step in here. I'm going to say we got some good Twi'lek action, so watch your words.
Oh, I got some spicy hot takes on that.
But I don't know, for me, that episode felt distinctly like it could be coming out of, like, Star Trek Deep Space Nine or something.
But, like I just said...
Yeah, it shouldn't feel like that, because
exactly.
those were like 30 episodes.
Yeah, those were 26-episode seasons.
Yeah.
They were coming out in a time when big budget shows weren't even a thing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
the prison did look pretty cheap.
No, that's what I agreed with you. I'm agreeing with you because it had that feel.
Yeah, HBO haven't even started their original like programming yet. You know, like so that was a different time. There's no excuse for Disney now to have a show that feels so cheap because most of their episodes of The Mandalorian felt like bottle episodes that felt like they were trying to conserve the budget.
Yeah.
And that prison
why though?
Ship episode.
All the budgets go to the Marvel shows.
Well, that's actually what I was going to say. I looked it up because I was like, we talked about this in the first Mandalorian episode where I was just like, why does it feel so cheap? They need to be, this is Star Wars. They need to be sinking millions and millions of dollars into this. And I was like, why? I don't understand. And I looked it up and apparently each episode of The Mandalorian costs $10 to $15 million each, which is a normal amount for a premium cable or streaming show. Witcher, Game of Thrones, that's that kind of budget.
Where did it go?
Yeah, but it's only 8 episodes, not 10 or more.
Yeah.
Also, The Mandalorian does not look as good as any of the HBO stuff, especially Game of Thrones. But also... I read that they're spending $25 million an episode on the Marvel stuff for Disney+. So it's like they're spending all the money on the Marvel stuff because they want that to look cinematic. But again, when it comes to Star Wars, they don't care. We've talked about this for so many hours.
And, you know, history keeps proving us right.
Yeah, it's like they listen to our show and go, oh,
they lean into it.
Yeah, it's like we're going to do this to spite them. We're going to lean into this practice that we should be.
Yeah, they're just throwing the nerds a bone at this point. Yeah, you want a live action TV show? Have a live action TV show.
And that's what The Mandalorian feels like, and is one of my spicy hot takes. Baby Yoda, I love him. He's so cute. I want all the toys, he's a gimmick.
Yeah,
he's a meme. he's something for people who don't like Star Wars or who don't watch the show to talk about, to generate buzz. And that's why I said at the start of the show, most people only watch the show for him. You know?
It's true.
The show itself is good and I enjoy it and I'll watch season 2, but it's not as good as everyone's saying it is.
No.
And it's not as good as it needs to be in 2020 when we have shows like The Witcher, Watchmen, The Outsider.
Fucking Stranger Things.
Stranger Things even.
Yeah, Stranger Things.
You know?
Like, the thing that, like, yeah, you take Stranger Things, it's like they keep having to reinvent themselves a little bit, even though largely remains the same. Is The Mandalorian going to reinvent itself for season 2? I doubt it.
No. Is it going to somehow increase the budget's not, you know, is normal for ongoing seasons, but is it going to somehow all of a sudden become a HBO style?
No.
You know,
they've set the tone.
Has there ever been a show that started off like kind of mediocre and ended up becoming great over time?
Oh, I'd say most shows in general before the cable television revolution. You know, most ABC, NBC, CBS shows, first season's always a bit rocky. You know, second season gets a bit better. Third season, all the Star Trek shows, you know, it's the third-ish, fourth season, that's where shit gets really good.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they find a groove, the budget gets a bit more increased, you know, they find an audience.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
But now we're in a different age of television where it's like premium cable, premium streaming shows, 10 episodes, you know, really expensive.
It's kind of flipped a little bit because now all the shows have all the money, and if they don't do well, they get cancelled. It's not. Let's give them a little bit and see how it goes.
That's what I was going to say. Is like the first season has to be great. Yeah. Because if it's not, people are going to move on to the next thing.
The DC problem, right, with their shows, it's like they cancel all these shows.
Well, I think they
were good shows.
They only cancelled Swamp Thing because of some sort of tax
I know
which was really shifty. And one day we'll have to talk about that because I'm really fucking mad.
I haven't seen it and I'm upset.
Yeah.
But I know they cancelled Hellblazer after one season, and it was one of those situations where towards the end of the season, the show finally starts to have a feel, and then they're like, nah, it's done.
That's always a shame when you can tell they've like found a groove.
The writers know what they're doing, they're growing into the world, and then it gets axed.
Yeah. But like we're in a world now where it has to be good from episode 1.
Yeah.
And for me, Mandalorian, it was good but not great, and over 8 episodes I was like, it never really became great.
Yeah, and I don't see them improving it drastically.
I think it'll stay the way it is, which, like I said in the first Mandalorian episode we did, it'll stay the way it is, which is a quick, light, disposable action show, mainly aimed towards kids, just because of how simple it is and how the story is told. It takes place in this large universe that we should be exploring, and the best parts of it are the world-building scenes and character-building scenes, but I think what people enjoy about it is that disposable nature of, if I miss an episode, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it's a streaming show, so you never miss an episode kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a light action show. There's nothing really going... And that's not, like I said, it's not a bad thing, but I expected more, especially in this age of TV, and especially from Star Wars.
It's Star Wars.
Yeah, but with Disney, like we said, they're just so we'll focus on the Marvel stuff.
You know what it is, though? It's also probably a sense of apathy because they're like, they probably don't see Amazon or Netflix as competition. Because they're like, we're Disney. We don't have competition. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like that. But when you've been the reigning emperor for so long, but they probably just like let them have their little ballpark.
That's what I've always complained about Disney's handling of Star Wars. They use it purely for brand recognition.
Yeah,
it's like they're not afraid of Amazon and HBO and Netflix because it's like we have the brand names. We have the superheroes, we have the Marvel, we have the MCU, we have the Star Wars, we have the Pixar, we have the Disney princesses. It's like we have what's going to draw people.
Is that
Simpsons?
Is that what Disney Plus is to Disney? Is it a little side project, a little hobby? Because, like, do they need Disney Plus? Not really. Their movies make...
Oh, I think, like I said, now in this world of the way television is, everything has to be streaming. Everyone has to have an app and a service. So it's a logical step for them to go into.
It is a logical step, but what I mean is when their movies routinely make 500 million to $1 billion at the box office.
Yeah.
If you're a CEO, you're just like, look, yeah, we'll do streaming, but do we need it? Probably not. To keep, it's not. They're not in a position where it's gonna, like, if they ignore Disney Plus or they don't actively work at increasing the quality of Disney Plus, they're not going to suffer for it.
Yeah.
Because
True.
like their property's already killed.
But that's the problem with Disney.
Yeah,
is
like
that apathy is that like we don't need any of this. It's like, so there's no, like we talked about in the Star Wars reviews, there's no passion for the storytelling or the characters. It's just we'll churn it out because people are going to watch it. It's like we don't care if it's good or bad. We don't care. That's the thing. It's like that's Disney's MO.
Whereas like companies like Netflix, Stan, Hulu, their whole company, the whole revenue and the whole profit base is due to streaming. Disney has less of that going on.
They have more fingers in more pies.
Yeah, so they don't have to stress as much about the streaming solution.
I think the only reason Mandalorian has any heart behind it is because Jon Favreau seems to be invested.
Also, the fact that each episode is like based on Star Wars by George Lucas, not A New Hope.
I think that's I think that's less of a.
I know. I just like that.
I think that's less of a dig and more of a. It's based on the idea of the world of Star Wars.
I still like it.
They're not saying.
No, I know what you mean.
It's based on Star Trek by Gene Roddenberry.
No.
It's based on the whole idea. I don't think they're specifically targeting.
I just like it. That's all.
So do I. I mean, original Star Wars is called Star Wars. It's not called A New Hope, but. I don't think that's a specific dig at George Lucas, especially if they do.
No, it's not a dig. It's not a dig at all. It's like an homage.
Yeah, or you know what I mean though.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a reference or an homage. I think it's purely
just based on Star Wars.
It's the way they can label it.
Because it's not based on a specific film.
I know what you guys. Jesus, I know what you guys are saying. I'm saying I like the fact that it says based on Star Wars, created by George Lucas or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah. My notes are all over the place. I'm just going to start at the start. You guys interject whenever you want, and we'll pick a point and we'll develop a discussion around it. So, first thing, Mando's ship, I don't like it. Looks like shit.
It's a little bit cheap.
It's ugly. It looks cheap. And also, they're deliberately going for a prequel-style design. Even one of the characters in the show mentions it's a pre-Imperial design.
Yeah.
I hate all that prequel bullshit, which we'll talk about later on.
The ship's very claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And
the Slave 1 was claustrophobic, but it looked fucking cool. And it was a cool design where it laid flat and then it flew vertical. This ship is just a big, I don't know, ugly troop carrier, but when you go inside, it's all small and cramped, and
the ship didn't strike me as beautiful either. I didn't particularly.
It doesn't have to be beautiful,
but beautiful is in it didn't strike me as anything special.
Speaking of, like we were talking before with the budget, apparently they spent $5 million just on the Baby Yoda puppet alone.
I find this hard to believe at a technical level.
Yeah.
Why do you need $500 million to make an animatronic puppet that blinks and maybe can waddle on 2 feet?
I think
Hollywood accounting would amount to most
that's definitely
of that.
part of it, but also they had they spent $4.75 million on getting the cuteness right, and then the rest of the money on the animatronic.
That's where it went. Lucas Arts spent $4 million developing research to find which will be the cutest
how to make
exactly research and development into the cutest species of Star Wars alien.
In saying that though, they're really slow to the draw with the merchandising because the Baby Yoda dolls still haven't come out yet.
Well, that's an interesting point.
Do you reckon they didn't expect the reaction?
Yeah, were they surprised?
I think that's part of it because, I think I said this not a couple minutes ago, Baby Yoda feels kind of like a gimmick or a marketing decision, but their slow reaction and their misunderstanding of its potential and draw and the fan reaction seems to indicate that it's actually Jon Favreau's baby.
Yeah.
It was his idea, and he's very protective of it. It's not called Baby Yoda, he's the child, they're definitely trying to develop that, with his force powers and stuff, which I don't like. But it still feels like
it's a
load
gimmick,
of shit.
100%. I think I don't know how were they surprised, but I think they must have been surprised at the level of popularity. Otherwise, they would have had these in the pipeline.
Yeah. I think...
But $5 million to create that toy? No.
Oh, to create the puppet on the show. Yeah.
I don't
5 million,
I don't buy it.
That's a lot of money.
Like, I'm sure it did technically cost that much if Disney's
Well,
accounting
are we talking like
plan.
fucking R&D and stuff like that? Like, give me a break.
No, we're just joking here. I'm like,
Also,
how do you get...
Also, at the end of the day, it is a small Yoda. Like, we already know what Yoda looks like, so they just have to, like, make him look cuter.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
But I don't buy that figure. Like, I'm sure technically it cost them $5 million, but I feel like there was some fudging involved somewhere.
Oh, definitely.
Technically, baby, we made a loss on Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
We claim him back on tax.
So, keeping on Baby Yoda, like, hot take, I love him, he's so cute, but like I said, he's a gimmick, and much in the same way as Babu Frick, he's cool, but cut him out of the film. Like, but this Mandalorian would be a better show if Baby Yoda was just a small human, like a 10-year-old human child or a 15-year-old human child who the Mandalorian took under his wing and trained to be a Mandalorian warrior.
Look, I mean, technically, Baby Yoda's 50, so...
Well, yeah, but...
I'm gonna joke.
Yeah, he's called the child, like I said. But, like Ciri in The Witcher... It's like, eventually Geralt will train her to be a Witcher, like that's a more interesting character.
It would have been a much more interesting story. And I would even, here's a slightly hot take, even keep, so we'll say it's a human child now, even keep the Force powers. Because it adds that would add an interesting layer of the Mandalorian being like, do not use them anywhere, don't show them publicly.
Yeah. As much as I want a Star Wars show without any Force powers, without any lightsabers, that would be more interesting if it was a child he was training to be a Mandalorian warrior who did have Force sensitivity. And it's like maybe keep that a secret, or maybe he encourages it. Who knows?
Because this would be right.
That's more interesting than an all-powerful little cute Yoda, which is another problem I have with Baby Yoda. Another spicy hot take.
Yeah,
he's way overpowered.
Oh yeah, look,
like Rey was in the Star Wars movies. It's ridiculous.
If we embraced that in Baby Yoda, we would be massive hypocrites.
Oh, yeah. No, exactly.
I can't defend that.
Yeah, it's like we complained about it when it happened with Rey, and I'm not going to pretend it's not a problem now because I like the cuteness of Baby Yoda. It's a problem.
It is a massive problem. Yeah.
And as soon as I saw him in the second episode or whenever he's introduced in that little cradle, and I'm like, please don't have Force powers. Please don't have Force powers. And of course, that's what they do.
Maybe if he can just lift a pebble or something.
No, but no Force powers at all. He shouldn't have. And this is what they're going to do this, and I hope they don't, but they are going to do it. As the series goes on, they're going to have more hints to his origins, and eventually they're going to reveal if he's not a clone of real Yoda, he's going to be of the same species, and they're going to reveal some bullshit about how all Yoda species are from this Force planet where they're born out of the Force, and that's why there's only a few of them, and that's why they live for so long. It's because they're they're midichlorian babies or some shit like that.
I thought it was confirmed that was going to be a major plot point for season 2.
I don't know, confirmed, I don't know, but that definitely feels like where they're heading with it, and I'm going to hate it.
I think it depends how they pull it off.
It can get worse. He could be a clone or reincarnation of Yoda.
Oh, no.
And then he gets old enough and he speaks and he goes,
I
with
think,
the Force, I am back.
I think either way, it's bad. If he's a clone of Yoda, that sucks.
No,
if he's a reincarnation of Yoda, that's even worse. If he's the same species but not connected to Yoda, that's not too bad. But if he's if they reveal that all of Yoda's species are some sort of Force babies, fuck that shit, man.
We'll see what happens. Season 1 was alright, so...
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, the best parts of the show for me are the world building, character building. And yet, the more building they do with Baby Yoda, the worse it's going to get. And that's why, spicy hot take, I don't like Baby Yoda, he should be cut out of the show.
Now, here's the thing.
Even though he's so cute and I want to cuddle him.
So this is connected. Like, do you remember when we watched Finding Francis? They go on that massive. They go on that massive.
Nathan for you.
Yeah. They go on that massive. They go on the massive journey to find the Bill Gates impersonator's long lost love. The titular Francis.
Yeah.
And then they stop. They get there and they're like, you know what? Let's not go in.
Yeah.
Like, it might be a situation like that where Mando's like, look, I know where it is, but maybe we don't want to go down that route. Maybe he just stays with me. You know what I mean? Like, maybe he will find out.
Not to turn this into a Finding Francis episode, which everyone in the world should watch because it's the greatest hour of television ever. But that was a great moment in terms of, like, what it meant for the guy.
Yeah,
and
true.
what it meant for the woman, his lost love. It's like he had to let her go. He was obsessed with her, and he was at her door, and he was like, "I gotta let her go," and he didn't even let her know that he was there
down the road
because to her she had moved on. She didn't even think about him for however many decades. But if they get to Baby Yoda's planet and they're like, you know, maybe it's better not to know, that would just be blue balls. That would just be a waste of time in terms of storytelling. You know, if he was a human child. And the human child was like, I gotta find my parents, I gotta find my origins, yada yada. And they got to the place, and he finds that his family's moved on or whatever. And then the kid decides, you know, maybe I shouldn't. That's for character. That's different.
Yeah. I foresee a cheesy moment where we see Yoda's or Baby Yoda's origins or whatever, or little Baby Yoda has a choice, go with his family,
and he waddles on his little papa legs,
and he just pulls the Mando's like arm. He's like,
Mandalorian's like, go get out of here,
and Mando's just sitting there,
I don't want you,
and Mando's sort of just looking up at him,
and then Mando walks away, and then he feels something tugging, he turns back.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be the biggest Disney cheese fest. We'll put bets on it now.
I would clap. I would clap for that. I would clap.
Honestly, you see one tear roll down Pedro's cheek. He's like,
and from the just one little tear comes out of like the eyes.
Baby Yoda goes, Pappy?
Dad. Chalky milk. Chicky nuggies. I know they don't. Do they? I don't think they do McDonald's toys anymore, right? Like it's not really a thing.
I don't think so.
But Baby Yoda, Chalky milk, Chicky nuggie. Happy Meal toys.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Another reason why this show is a 90s show.
McDonald's, send us a check.
They should... Baby Yoda, 90s.
Yeah.
And they could make the Baby Yoda cartoon, you know, Saturday morning cartoon, Cheese TV.
Yeah, man.
Oh, man. Send us a check and a time machine. Fuck.
But yeah, so that's... But I just love him so much.
No, I love him. But, you know, for the storytelling and for the show... Like,
who needs to die?
The show isn't
Jedi.
The show isn't called The Child. It's called The Mandalorian.
Yeah, well, fair point.
And we'll talk about that as well. Like the show should be called Mandalorians, and it should just be a show about the Mandalorian. It should be an ensemble cast.
Well, I don't think you can call it Mandalorians. I think The Mandalorian could also work as a group.
So it's not just Pedro Pascal's Mandalorian hour? Where he runs around in a suit of armor and does crazy shit.
Callum's our wordsmith here. Technically, could the Mandalorian also signify the whole group? I feel like it could.
I think in canon, it's Mandalorians. I don't think it's like a fishes. Like
because the planet was Mandalore, right?
Mandalore, yeah.
Yeah, so you'd have to call it Mandalore or
I guess
Mandalori?
There's the Mandalore, the planet, and then there's the Mandalore, which is the leader of the Mandalorians. So, I mean...
The Mandalore could have been a cool title.
The Mandalore, yeah. Actually, man. So, see, this is why the show, I think, should just focus on the cool world-building stuff and not on the monster of the week stuff. And I know that's what people like about it, is why they like that prison ship episode, because it's like a heist, escape movie. But I'm like, this is boring. Like, let's move on to the cool stuff, which is the Mandalorian weapons and history and armor and...
I think it'd be an interesting idea if like I said, if it was called the Mandalore.
Yeah.
You could have the whole show revolves around Pedro Pascal running away from his responsibilities to the Mandalorians.
Yeah.
Ultimately having to kind of like become the Mandalore.
That would
be, you know what I mean?
Awesome.
Like him being like, I don't want a part of this. I'm just on my own, like a Han Solo kind of guy.
Yeah. Because like some of the comic books and stuff, they show you the history of the Mandalorians, thousands of years before the movies. And then there's the Clone Wars animated show and the Rebels animated show, which shows you the Mandalorians around the times of the prequels and the original movies. And now we're at a time where it's like 5 years after Return of the Jedi when the Mandalorian is set, and the Mandalorians have changed again. Like they don't remove their helmets, they're in hiding because the Empire destroyed their home planet, and they're on the run, which isn't really a thing that's been explored before. That's new to the Mandalorian show. So I'm like, you can still keep that aspect of it, but yeah, make it about the Empire destroyed the Mandalorian homeworld. They're all in hiding. They're all scattered. And it's about the Mandalorian, still call it that, or the Mandalore, still you can call it that. And yeah, it's about a guy who's running away from his destiny as the rightful ruler.
Yeah, of that group of people.
Of the people.
Like the diaspora.
And the Monster of the Week, Adventure of the Week style show could still happen, but the goal is for him to go around looking for Mandalorians and
to unite them.
Bringing them together. See?
Sick.
And like, unfortunately, Baby Yoda is not in this version, but you can have that. He's got a adoptive foundlings, they call it, because the Mandalorians are not a race, they're a culture. You find an orphan or whatever and you raise it in the Mandalorian way. And so if the Baby Yoda character was a small child or a teenager, that's a much more compelling character, especially for the journey of the man who's going to be the Mandalorian king.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like it's a...
There's so much... I think there's a lot of meat on the bones.
Yeah.
But they're taking the... I mean, we've said it before, it's always the safest way possible.
That's the problem with the show, is it's the safe, cheap adventure of the week.
There's no risk
Disney
involved.
Channel version.
And keep in mind, the same people that watch this show will have watched the riskier version. But that's the thing I always say about Disney Star Wars is they use it purely for brand recognition. Exactly. I'm like,
but you can but because the brand is so powerful and the name is so powerful, you could make a really hardcore EU nerdy as shit Star Wars movie or show. But because it's Star Wars, people are going to like it. Yeah. You can't say it's not going to be accessible.
No,
that's a load of shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's just excuse making.
Yeah.
Are you telling me the MCU is inaccessible because of all the nerdy shit in that? No, of course not.
No.
People who have never read a comic book in their life love the MCU.
Yeah, people who don't read comic books still probably thought Thanos was a cool villain.
Yeah.
It's like no, the Snap was still featured heavily. That's nerdy.
Yeah.
Like the Infinity Gauntlet, some of the hardcore, 80s shit. And that was, Kevin Feige didn't even think twice about that. He was probably just like, of course Thanos is going to be there. And why not the Infinity Gauntlet?
This is actually brings up another point that I had, is that Disney, now that the Skywalker saga is over, with The Mandalorian and with their future movies and TV shows, they're now finally free to turn the whole thing into an MCU-style connected universe.
Yeah.
And while that works for the MCU because of the comic book history and because of someone like Kevin Feige, I don't think it works for Star Wars.
No, especially because they don't think really, there's any source material.
Exactly. They don't really like or understand it either. Even though like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have passion for it, it's still under the Disney mold. It's still under the foot of Disney control. And it still has to take into consideration a lot of prequel and sequel bullshit. Which brings me to my point, is the MCU is so great is because you can reference and take, cherry pick out great moments and take, whatever you want from 70, 80 years of comic book history. And even though, people have different opinions on what's good and what's bad, and it changed throughout the years of depending on who was writing and who was doing the art. But generally, if you see a reference to something in the MCU, it's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. You can't really do that with the Star Wars canon.
You can, but for me personally, the Star Wars new Disney canon is the anti-MCU.
Oh, yeah.
Is where anytime you reference the prequels or sequels, I groan and I want to turn the show off. When Bill Burr makes the Gungan joke, I wanted to shoot myself.
Yeah, yeah.
When they make a Canto Bite joke, I wanted to kill someone.
I paused it. I was like,
Yeah. And we talked about this last episode or the episode before when we were talking about what is considered canon, what happens in the Star Wars writing room. There's one guy who might love the prequels and hate the originals. There's one guy who only considers the originals canon like we do, and so there's all this conflicting. But like we said, in the MCU, even though there's differences of opinion and differences of what people have grown up with, generally the characters and the overall stories that have happened throughout comic book history are taken seriously. And
the problem is that because the story of Star Wars continued in the forms of novels and very strictly controlled story arcs in the comics, like in terms of Dark Empire and stuff like that.
Well, strictly is too Dark Empire, but strictly is too strong of a word, I think.
But like,
in the
there's
90s
no resets. Like it's like one event happens, then another chronologically.
Yeah, there's retcons, but not such a comic book. There's never a new 52.
Yeah. It's like
until now, which Disney.
Well, yeah.
So that's my point. Is now Disney has erased the old EU, is setting up their new canon, but what's considered canon now is all the stuff that's terrible and that is a corruption and disease upon Star Wars, which is the prequels, the sequels, and all that surrounding bullshit. For the last 20 years, we've been dealing with this. Special edition stuff, all that shit. So, The Mandalorian, as much as I enjoy it, and will continue to watch it.
It still exists in that ecosystem.
Exactly. So, there's so many there's so much prequel bullshit in The Mandalorian that I hate. And they're definitely trying to go for that MCU-style connected universe.
Yeah.
And it's just going to get worse as it goes on, as they introduce more stuff from the prequels, as they try to connect it more to the sequels. You know, just the fact that there are battle droids in the flashback of Mandalorian's flashbacks. Yeah. Like, most people in the MCU, that would be great. Like, there's a flashback to an old bit in the comic book where the Skrulls attacked his home family. And I'm like, would be great. But because it's prequel stuff, I'm like, don't reference that shit.
Remind me, what kind of droids were they again?
Super battle droids from the Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
The big blue kind of things. But anyway, like, you know what I mean? Like, an example. In, I think, the first Guardians of the Galaxy, maybe, it was like one of the end credits stingers, they introduced the Adam Warlock's cocoon.
Ah, yeah.
And I was so excited. I'm like,
they never paid that shit up,
Adam Warlock is so cool. I hope that comes up. Well, Guardians of the Galaxy 3's coming out, so who knows? But you know, it's like, that's really cool. Even if that's never picked up ever again. Adam Warlock.
Easter egg.
He exists.
He exists. It's really cool, right?
Is it Keanu Reeves?
But but in Mandalorian or in future Star Wars properties, when they reference Gungans or battle droids or
it hurts us just a little bit.
The First Order.
Johnny Hill, he's like,
it's just no, stop. You know, like it's the anti-MCU. You can't have an interconnected universe when 95% of your universe consists of absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
And you've erased all the good stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like, what are you doing? Like, just leave the bad smells out.
Yeah.
Like, we're just starting to enjoy this show, but you have to bring in all this sad stuff.
Yeah. But like we're like I said last week, we're at a point of no return. Star Wars is dead, and it'll never recover. And I like The Mandalorian, and I'll continue to watch it. But as a Star Wars show, and as a show that should be developing the world and characters, it's kind of whatever.
Again, I mean,
it's just like I said, it's a fun fluff.
We don't really have this is a rhetorical question because we can't answer it. But it's like, I wonder how much of that was Disney and how much of that was Favreau. Like, do you think Disney was like, we want you to put in X amount or X percent of like references to other areas, or
that's something I always want to know, and we'll never know. You know,
like how much of the shit we don't like was Favreau's fault, how much was it wasn't.
Yeah,
like what would he like? I want to know, what would he change? You know what I mean? Like what was forced?
Yeah, what would he do if he had full creative control?
Yeah,
you know, we talked about the last Mandalorian episode where Dave Filoni, who was I think created the Rebels animated show and was a producer or on the Clone Wars animated show, like he's passionate about all that prequel stuff and he loves that and he keeps that canon, but unfortunately it's the crappy prequel stuff. So it's like, even without Disney's interference, you're still going to have people who, like I said in previous Star Wars episodes, it's in everyone's psyche now. Everyone everyone has, and people in the industry making these shows and movies, and that, Hollywood diplomacy, no one wants to be offensive.
Yeah.
They have to keep that into consideration. They have to keep that into canon. Whereas I think we had this discussion once off air. If I was given the reins to Star Wars, I would be like, okay, Disney, the only things that are canon are the 3 original theatrical versions of Star Wars. and then that's it.
That's it. Yeah,
like
exactly.
prequels do not exist, sequels do not exist. We have to go from there.
You start again by re-releasing the original theatrical versions.
Yeah, and start it as a jumping off point. And you know what Disney would say? Thank you for coming in. Have a nice day.
Yeah, that's it.
But most people, given the opportunity to make a Star Wars, would be happy to do whatever Disney wants, would be happy to reference all the prequel, sequel bullshit. And Jon Favreau, I think, and Dave Filoni, even without Disney's interference, I think would still make the same show or a very similar show, because that's what Star Wars is now. It's a bunch of contradictory nonsense.
Yeah.
It's silly CGI nonsense from the
just
prequels.
lightsabers and the Force, that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this, we kind of mentioned this as well, but like I just wanted one fucking damn Star Wars property without the Jedi, Force, or lightsabers. Just one. And of course, what do? Not only is Baby Yoda overpowered in the Force, they introduce a lightsaber at the end of the season, which we'll talk about later. But again, just once. Like, this Star Wars universe is so huge, and yet they always come back to the same thing. The Force is an important thing in Star Wars, but it's not the only thing.
That's it. Yeah.
Lightsabers are not the only thing.
No.
You know, and but
sometimes you just want to watch a
I think a lot
the slave trade by what's his face.
I think the only reason, I think a lot of the reason people respond to
Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah. I just want to see a Hutt cartel show.
We'll talk about that later as well. Remind me about that. I'm going to write that down. Hutt. So what was I saying, Callum?
Oh man, I was trying to pay attention, Nathan. I'm sorry.
Nathan,
No, you were talking about how you just want a show with no Force, no...
So, exactly. And like, I think a lot of people, like we always say, their only idea of Star Wars is, it's got the Force and lightsabers.
Yeah, laser guns.
Yeah. And so, to make a show that doesn't have that, or to make a movie that doesn't have that, Disney has to keep tying it in because their whole thing is member and crowd pleasing.
For an executive, it's like, well, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
It's Star Wars.
So, but the Star Wars is such a huge universe that we should just have a show. The main movies can all be about the Force and the Jedi. That's fine. But to have a show just about smugglers or bounty hunters or assassins, or, X-Wing fighter, squadron fighters, TIE fighter pilots, just have that. That would be really cool. And I talked about this on the first Mandalorian episode. The Han Solo movie should have just been that, like a Western smuggler, cool shootouts. But of course, at the end, they had to do this MCU bullshit, and Darth Maul shows up. And that's what this show is doing, is they're slowly introducing, they introduced the Darksaber, and, Yoda is so powerful, and, eventually, who knows, a Jedi might, hidden Jedi, I've been hiding, until I heard that the Empire was defeated, now I've come,
they're listening. Okay, I just want to...
Yeah, exactly. When it happens. But you know what I mean? Like, The Mandalorian, I think the reason people are responding to it is because it's just a gunslinger Western show.
Yeah.
But they keep bringing in this other bullshit, and we don't need it.
They'll throw millions at Liam Neeson to play an old Qui-Gon Jinn who secretly survived.
Yeah. I guess that should then tie in.
And that'll tie in with the Obi-Wan show.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. We should now talk about the Obi-Wan show, which, like we said in previous episodes, I repeat myself a lot, I apologize. But Star Wars can't be the MCU. They're different things, but that's what they're trying to do. They tried to do with Solo, they tried to introduce Darth Maul, they're trying to introduce all this Force stuff with Mandalorian. And now you've got the Obi-Wan show coming out. And so it's all going to be this connected thing, and because the Clone Wars animated series and the Rebels animated series are in canon and take place in the timeline, and because Dave Filoni is working on is connected to those shows and he's working on Mandalorian, and Mandalorian references several things from those shows. It's like I said from the very beginning, is The Mandalorian is a kid's show. Yeah. It's a sequel to Clone Wars and the Rebels, but it's a live-action version with a gritty Rogue One paint job. And so, again, spicy hot take, The Mandalorian, I enjoy it, but it's just another shitty Disney Star Wars, continuation.
Yeah.
The Obi-Wan show, when, Darth Maul will show up in that, and they'll make references to the Mandalorian or something,
Yeah.
All this. In the MCU, that works, but in Star Wars, it does not work.
Yeah, no.
And it will not work for the future.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, listeners. Mandalorian's cool and all, but kind of sucks as well.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't have that. The Star Wars franchise as a whole for television, I feel like it doesn't have longevity in the same way that the MCU does. Because how long can you sustain it without it becoming ridiculous?
But that's the thing. It would, if, like I said on previous episodes, if all you're taking to consideration is the originals and maybe some of the 90s EU, you can make so much cool stuff. But because we're now in this incestuous corruption cesspit of just nonsense, prequel stuff, sequel stuff, cartoons.
Yeah, but like if you keep referencing, if all the shows reference each other, it'll get out of hand really quickly.
Yeah, and that's another thing is all the Disney Star Wars stuff use nostalgia, weaponized nostalgia, and The Mandalorian has a lot of that. People are saying, oh, it's much better than the movies, and it is, but it still has a lot of remember this, remember that.
Yeah, it got me with Member Twi'leks. I was like, I never forgot.
Yeah, spicy hot take. So, one thing we hated about the new Disney Star Wars movies is that there were no classic alien species. It was really weird. It wasn't a nostalgia thing. It wasn't a, hey, remember this. It was, you're in a universe where these creatures live and exist.
But we're not showing them.
But they just don't show them. And the new aliens they do have look like shit. Yeah. And it's really, really weird and awkward. Finally, you get to The Mandalorian, and you've got heaps of classic alien species. Twi'leks, most importantly for Callum. Yeah. You got Rodians, you got Quarren, you got Trandoshans, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, finally, you know,
Thank you, John.
It feels like original Star Wars. It feels like you've got this fleshed out, and you've got new aliens as well, but it feels like this fleshed out world. It feels like a living world again. But then the prison episode happens, which I wasn't a big fan of, and I was like, yay, Twi'leks. And I'm like, something feels off. And it ties into the budget kind of things we were talking about. They look cheap.
Yeah.
But Twi'leks in the originals...
It's like they painted some dudes pink and they gave him like a slowpoke tail.
As much as the prequels suck, the Twi'leks look like Twi'leks. You know, when they're done practically, the makeup on the aliens in the prequels look pretty good, especially the Twi'leks. Now, we haven't seen Twi'leks in any of the new Star Wars movies, and we're finally seeing them on TV... And I don't know, they look wrong. They look cheap.
They look a little bit weird.
And I think it ties back into what we talked about with the movies, is Disney's idea of using practical effects is to make them look cheap and rubbery.
Yeah.
And it's insulting, and it looks like shit.
And it adds to that 90s TV show.
Yeah. But...
Happy to have them, though.
On the other hand, it is nice to have them, but on the other hand, there are a lot of good practical effects in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of them do look really good.
And they didn't all cost $5 million, I hope.
Baby Yoda look, you know, as much as, I maybe don't want him in the show story-wise, he looks really good.
Oh, yeah, the blinking on point.
Yeah.
Like, the sipping from the cup, best baby sipping cups I've ever seen in my life.
And even, you know, like I said in the last Mandalorian episode, like the IG-11 robot, like, looked really good. As much as I hate CGI, like, when he's moving around, looks really good. And there was some good CGI, there was some really shit CGI moments, but there were some really good CGI moments as well. So, you know, I think as much as I complain about maybe the look of the show, and there are things that I think look really cheap, but I think overall, like, special effects have been not bad, especially in comparison to the movies, which looked mostly terrible.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Mandalorian looks mostly good.
It's a trade-off. The movies cost a lot more to make, but they look mostly terrible.
Yeah.
And the show...
I guess it helps that the show's scaled down.
And
this is another reason the show feels so cheap. Is, I don't know if it's just me, every planet, every world they visit, every place feels empty.
Yeah.
And I know they're trying to do a whole it's post-war Outer Rim, but it feels cheap.
Well, I mean, one of the largest scenes was when they had a lot of First Order troopers attacking main characters. They got a lot of volunteers from the local...
oh, God. This show's going to end up being 5 hours. So when Force Awakens came out, I complained. I'm like, it looks cheap. It looks like shit. You know, why not have, you know, like the Battle of Endor, have like a bunch of guys in Stormtrooper uniforms, you know, running around, shooting each other, make it practical, make it on a location. They kept talking about the practical effects, and yet there was so much CGI bullshit. The Stormtroopers look like shit. And I was like telling my dad, I'm like, there's the 501st Legion. They're a bunch of fans who make movie-accurate, canon-accurate uniforms, Stormtrooper uniforms and all that, Mandalorian uniforms, Empire uniforms. They're like, to be a member, you have to be very dedicated, spend a lot of money. Your costumes have to be 100% movie-accurate. I'm like, you could just hire a bunch of those guys to come on board, Yeah. Why not? Disney's got infinite resources. Cut to, 5 years later, and they're making their Disney show, Mandalorian, and they didn't have enough resources to get the Stormtroopers, so they had to hire the 501st Legion. And I was like, hang on, that was my bullshit idea 5 years ago to pretty much say how shit Force Awakens was. Now you're doing it for real, getting these poor fans, who I'm sure were more than happy to be involved.
Yeah.
But you see my point. You're Disney. Spend an extra couple of million on some more extras and uniforms.
Yeah.
Don't fuck around. You're spending $25 million on Marvel. Spend $30 million on Star Wars.
Because that's what it sort of speaks out to, the frugal mindset of Disney being like, can we keep costs low on Star Wars,
it's like,
please?
Fuck
like,
you.
Instead of spending...
You've got 8 episodes.
Instead of spending the money on the Stormtroopers, let's just see if we can get some volunteers in.
Like, it's like Disney listens to our show. It's like they're doing it to spite us. Like, it's fucking insulting. Spend the time, spend the money. It's Star Wars. At the end of the day, people are going to like it.
Or hate it.
Well, and as we've seen, it's dead. Fuck it. I'm so... What else can we talk about?
Well, I mean, as someone who likes the show... I mean, we all like it, but as someone, like, I would buy it on Blu-ray, I like it, but I'm wary about where it's going. Like,
Yeah, we talked
on one hand, I want them to pay off the Baby Yoda stuff.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I worry that paying that off will interfere with the show's flow.
Yeah.
Like, I like Baby Yoda, and I don't want him to go away, but I don't want him to age.
Yeah.
And I just want him to scale the Force back a bit.
Considering he's 50 and he's only, 1 year old in human terms, I don't think he's going to age in the timeline of the show.
I do think we need a recurring cast.
Yeah,
I don't know how tenable it is just having Mando run around the galaxy endlessly.
Here's the thing: is like I said, you need an ensemble cast for a TV show. I think what people again like about the show is that lone gunslinger, and I enjoy that too. But is it sustainable for X amount of seasons? They do at the end of the season do the thing of let's bring all the characters back. They bring Carl Weathers back. They bring Gina Carano back. They bring IG-11 back from the dead. They bring the Ugnaught guy, Nick Nolte guy. And I'm like, okay. On one hand, I'm like, that's maybe what the show should have been from the beginning, is an ensemble. On the other hand, it's breaking up the flow of that lone gunslinger monster week show. But like I said, the strengths of the show come in the world building, the character building. The best moments of the show are the Mandalorian bits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the show should have just been
cool. an
ensemble Mandalorian show.
It was so cool, the ritual moments where he's getting the armor forged, and it's I love that ritualistic stuff. I want to know more about the rites,
and especially
one thing I would have liked more out of the show.
Yeah,
I would have loved to see. I know they're not supposed to take their helmets off due to whatever sort of rule they follow now. I would have liked to have seen more private moments with Pedro Pascal.
I laughed. I will say, I kind of laughed. I had this headcanon that he's only in it for one scene, and that's when they take the helmet off, and it's some other guy.
He just voices. There's a stunt guy in the costume.
Yeah, and he got paid fat stacks for the one scene where he takes the helmet off.
No one would know.
Yeah.
But I'd like more scenes in even if it's in the ship when they're is
with the child.
I think they need to this never taking the helmet thing off. It's a cool idea, but it makes the show suffer in terms of characters.
Yeah.
And it's a new thing they've introduced that wasn't a Mandalorian thing before.
Because we could get more character development,
I think if you had a show based around the Mandalorians and have them, actual be they should be characters. They should take off their helmet, have private conversations. Then when they're in battle scenes, put on your helmet, yada yada.
I can understand them even not taking off their helmets
in public.
In public, but in their own little enclave, they should be able to.
When he goes into the sewers and they have their little community, they should all have their helmets on.
Yeah,
like it shouldn't be like it's dumb.
And you get more character. We can empathize with the characters more that way because we see facial expressions, we see more dynamics between characters.
Yeah,
it can be more intimate. That's one of the problems with the show to an extent with the Mandalorians is it doesn't feel intimate enough.
Yeah.
Even though they are very much a military force, but they need to also feel like a family.
Yeah, when Mandalorian finally does take his helmet off and it's Pedro, I was like, I love Pedro, but because Mandalorian,
it's meant to be a big reveal, but
like Mandalorian as a character is still not great. Like I think, and as I said in the first Mandalorian episode we did, I love Boba Fett, but as a character, the more you develop him, flesh him out, and probably
the weaker he gets.
Yeah, I think he works more as a villain or a supporting character, and I think the Mandalorian.
But they need mystery too. It's a balancing act.
Yeah, but so I think that's why I think they should have just done a Mandalorian show with an ensemble cast, or if you are going to have a lone Mandalorian gunslinger, do that, but have him with a more ensemble cast.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
And again, like they're doing that kind of at the end with the other characters, but
too little, too late.
Yeah, and also I think as the show goes on, they'll go back to that Monster of the Week, Adventure of the Week. He'll go around alone and he'll meet new people, and they might bring back Carl Weathers and Gina Carano and whatever. But it's not.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like I said, it's a cheap, fluff, light action show. Adventure of the Week.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's not bad. But I want more. I expect more.
It's Star Wars. Have a bit of respect.
Yeah. Like...
It's that whole thing of like, they're not going to do this in any fucking way with Marvel. I guarantee there's going to be none of this. Because the Marvel shows are billed as almost a bridge between movies, right?
Yeah.
So they're not going to be as disposable.
The Marvel property is... Star Wars is sacred.
Yeah.
To us. But from a company perspective, Marvel is sacred.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to fiddle with Marvel.
Like,
that's their in perpetuity cash cow.
Yeah.
I mean, Star Wars is the same to some extent, but I don't think Star Wars will make Disney as much money as Marvel can.
Yeah.
Only because they're misusing Star Wars.
Yeah.
Not because there's no... money to be found in Star Wars.
They've also got 10 years of Marvel build
brand recognition and momentum behind it,
and groundwork,
positive momentum as well. Not like, because I say what you want about Star Wars, I understand it's made them a lot of money, but all of the feedback has been positive, but neutral positive. Yeah, like with Star Wars, but Marvel has been pretty much overwhelmingly positive since the get go, with a few hiccups here and there.
Yeah,
Thor: Dark World.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will eat my hat if the Marvel TV shows have the same issues.
They won't.
No, they definitely won't. Especially with the, increase in budget.
I mean,
like, you can tell they're going to make those little movies.
From WandaVision? I mean, that's all I need to know.
So fucking hyped. So hyped. So excited right now. But, yeah, imagine, 8 episodes is fine. 45 minutes to an hour each.
Yeah.
Make a show, a drama... it could still be a kid-friendly action Star Wars show, but, character-driven drama.
Needs to go somewhere.
Yeah, that goes somewhere, that develops. And I wanted to talk about The Witcher, where, like I said before, where the Baby Yoda character should be like a young human foundling who gets trained by the Mandalorian in the way. Like Ciri, Ciri's an actual character. She's not just a Baby Yoda, doll. And as the series goes on, The Witcher will show the relationship between her and Geralt and develop, and he trains her as a Witcher and that. And I think The Witcher, even though I have problems with that, which we'll talk about in the next couple of weeks, that's a better Mandalorian show than The Mandalorian because it keeps the Monster of the Week format, but it also has overarching character
plot devices
and a narrative that develops over
they almost
the whole...
have some Witches
and they're both 8 episodes, right?
Yeah. And Mandalorians and Witcher schools also have a similar enough dynamic.
Yeah, they're both warrior
outsider groups.
Yeah, they're both seen as
there are
outsiders.
Comparisons to be made.
So I feel like you can do a Monster of the Week fun adventure Star Wars show, but also have that overarching narrative and also have character building throughout. That's,
Yeah.
and like I said, there are those moments in Mandalorian of the character, building and world building, but it's like few and far between, and those are the best moments, and if they're the best, they should be expanded till where they're the whole thing.
Yeah.
But you then lose what people like about the show, which is the light, fluffy gunslinger adventure week to week, bounty lore,
Speaking of,
with fuck, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I hope it happens.
we'll see. We'll see. He signed on.
He said he's going to make it, but it's not going to happen. Fingers crossed.
Oh man,
Fingers crossed. But like I don't know. The more you make it, a better show.
Yeah.
At this point, because we've already seen what it is, the more people will complain. But if the show didn't exist and you made it the way I'm saying you should make it, people would be on board.
Yeah.
Because it's the first live-action Star Wars show. And it's about Mandalorians and it's cool.
Yeah.
Just like in the same way The Witcher is the first, there was the games, yeah. But
And there was also a show... TV.
Yeah, technically.
There's been a show that was really bad and it was only aired in Poland.
Oh, okay.
Technically,
And then there was a TV
But that's like saying, oh yeah, they've totally made the Wheel of Time a TV show before.
Yeah, because they made
They
the
did.
pilot
They made the
to
pilot.
keep the rights, yeah.
YouTube it, kids.
But
Yeah.
no,
Billy Zane.
No, don't.
No, don't.
I hope Billy Zane cameos in the legit...
No, not cameos, just reprises his role.
Oh, I would be down for that. 100%.
Same character.
110%.
Can you imagine if like that's like the prologue?
You know what? Billy Zane should be in Mandalorian as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Billy Zane should be in everything.
Yeah. Baby Yoda and Billy Zane together. The Adventures of Billy Zane featuring Baby Yoda.
Yeah, that's a better show.
That's a better show. Send us a check. What else? I do like the cast. I do like the characters.
Everyone acted admirably. Like
Yeah.
the stuntman who did 99% of the work as Pedro Pascal. He did a really good job.
Well, I suppose we should talk about Baby Yoda. Fucking force choking, nearly force choking.
Yeah, that ties into like I hate how overpowered
that was too
he
on
is.
the nose for me. I was
hate-
like, when
Baby
you start-
Yoda's Path to the Dark Side season 2.
So to set the scene, there's a scene where two Mandalorian and what's the lady's name?
Cara Dune.
Having an arm wrestle.
Yeah.
And Baby Yoda's like, oh no, she's trying to kill my man.
Yeah.
And so
My
he
dad.
starts he starts Vader choking.
Yeah, that was so
Cara.
dumb.
I'm like, that got real dark.
Like the Baby Yoda raises so many questions, and I was just like, that raises so many disturbing questions. I'm like, he doesn't know the difference between good and evil.
No, he doesn't.
Then they're definitely not going to try and introduce some sort of morality of he's turning to the dark side. He's too young. Like that doesn't make sense.
I reckon it was just
So
meant to
it
be
was
it was meant to be a fun moment, but
Yeah.
they don't know what they're doing.
No, exactly. So this is the thing: is I don't like what they're doing with Baby Yoda. He's too powerful.
Just watch season
and because
2.
he's an infant, he
Yeah.
has no. You can't you can't really teach him. He don't.
Yeah.
Has no Like
Just watch season 2 when
You
he
know?
uses Force Lightning to turn on light bulbs in the ship.
Oh, no.
Zap.
God, they'll do that. They'll definitely do that. You know what? You know that bit where he eats the frog? There'll be a bit where he's on a planet waddling after a frog or a little bird or something.
Zap. Just one finger.
And he'll
Zap.
he'll fall and he'll cry and he'll like zap it.
Yeah.
And I'll fucking flip a table and I'll be like, fuck this show. You know they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Disney's listening right now. I betcha.
The Mando's lost all his equipment and needs to start a fire, and Baby Yoda's like,
oh, we should also mention that in the same episode, I think Baby Yoda then force heals. Is it Carl Weathers or another guy? I can't remember.
Carl Weathers.
Yeah, but it's like, fuck, man, he's the most. We thought Rey was the most powerful Jedi.
yeah.
This guy
Think again.
is technically in
Younger.
human years 1 year old, and it's like he's fucking way more powerful.
And it's like,
And this is the problem.
my assumption is he witnessed all of this stuff on his home world.
But
So-
this is the thing: is
What kind of crazy shit
we
goes
talked
down on
about
Yoda's
this.
planet?
We talked about this. Disney's version of the Force and Jedi now is just
Yeah.
innate knowledge and superpowers.
Yeah, that's it.
It's
yeah.
just you're an automatic wizard when you're born.
Yeah.
Or when you hear a certain word, it's like flips a switch.
You're an
that's
X-Man. It's like X-Men. You turn a certain age and then bam, you have mutant powers.
That's what they're doing with Baby Yoda. They're not doing it for any specific reason. It's because now in Disney Star Wars, it's just if you have the Force, you're automatically powerful and you know all the tricks.
I swear to God, if they go to Dagobah.
Yeah, but also I bet you what they're doing is they're going to introduce later on that he's a magical Force baby because all of Yoda's species are magical Force babies who are powerful from birth.
Because is it ever made clear, was Dagobah Yoda's sort of original planet?
No. So in the George Lucas's thing was that one of his quote-unquote rules for the EU and stuff was Yoda's species and home planet, it was never revealed. No one knows who they are. He's like, I want to keep it a mystery. Like, that's it. And as the comic books went on and the prequels came out, there were a couple other of Yoda species that were introduced, all of which happened to be of Jedis, which I didn't like.
No.
And depends on, I think there's some old EU legends, which is not canon, and some is still canon. So, it depends what they... But they're going to do it. They're going to, go to Baby Yoda's home planet, and it's like, all the same Yoda species are Force babies who are strong in the Force.
Can I just say, did you see the picture of George Lucas holding the child?
Yeah.
There was a caption that just said, "Show me the baby." I was like, I like this a lot. I kind of felt happy when I saw that. I'm like, he's holding the Baby Yoda. I'm like, good for you, George.
like George Lucas is kind of like a nerdy, quiet kind of guy. Like I'm sure he like wandered on set and they were showing him things. He was like, yeah, cool. But I like that image of like he rolls up in a really stretched limousine, comes out with like a pimp cane and a cloak and glasses. And he's like, takes off his glasses, like, show me the baby. I am the god of this universe.
Yeah.
What else? Taika Waititi plays IG-11. Like I said on an earlier episode, I'm glad that he wasn't comic relief because Taika Waititi's known for comedy. And IG-11, like I said,
It was pretty cool when before he killed all the imps, he's like, I'm going to fulfill my secondary function or whatever, protecting.
Yeah, I did like that. Where he's like driving on a speeder bike and just like,
that was cool.
And Baby Yoda's loving it. He's like, yay, bike ride. They're now saying there's rumors that he's going to do a Star Wars movie. He directed the last episode of Mandalorian, and they're saying they want to get him to do a Star Wars movie.
I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I mean, he resurrected Thor from the dead.
I've said Taika Waititi can do no wrong, and I love him.
We said that about Ryan.
But when it comes to Star Wars,
it's a different beast.
Yeah, like I've always said, I would have been interested to see what Lord and Miller did with the Solo movie, but I probably wouldn't have liked it because it would have been more comedic or whatever. I feel like
if anyone has any amount of flack and confidence to do what they want in a Disney property, it would be Taika.
Yeah.
Because of his record with their
You just don't want it to be too funny, though.
Like the action was good in the last episode, but there was the scout troopers joking. I didn't like that.
Yeah, that felt very Kevin Smith. Like I
liked it. I liked it when the baby got punched.
No, yuck. Why?
It was funny.
I think it's important to realize that the Imperial troopers probably do speak like that. But I don't necessarily want to see it on screen.
It's like I said to you guys off air. It's like Disney has turned Star Wars into that Marvel. Again, they're trying to turn it into Marvel. That Marvel style of humor with the banter and the silliness and some of the slapstick. And I don't like it. It's like it was in the first episode. I said I didn't like it in the first episode where he picks up the blue guy who's his bounty, and the blue guy's like, "Hey, I can fix your chip. Let me go. And he's like,
"Look." To reference a Kevin Smith
joke... Bill Burr's character, there's all these comedian cameos. I don't like it.
To reference a Kevin Smith joke from Clerks, I'm sure contractors did that under their stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't want to know about it.
No. It's like I know, stormtroopers and TIE fighter pilots are just conscripted soldiers. They signed up at their local mall.
That's it. Space Mall.
Space Mall. And, it's kind of fucked up if you start to think about Luke Skywalker killing all these guys.
Who he would have been one of them too. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But we don't need that in Star Wars. Like we don't want to have we don't want to have a couple of
classic good versus evil. Let's leave it at that.
Unless you're gonna make, what they should have made? TIE Fighter the series. Have a couple of hotshot pilots go to their cantina, which is like the bar next to the Air Force base.
On the main character, cool. One of the main characters is a rookie who just got drafted.
Yeah, and it's like you can... Cool. I said this last episode, it's like you can explore what hasn't really been explored in live action before, is the idea that not all Imperials are evil, and the idea of the Imperials who jumped ship and became rebels. Play with that.
Yeah,
That's more interesting than whatever the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't want to see the Obi-Wan show. It doesn't make sense to do a whole series
on an old man in the desert.
I'm sure they're going to do his wacky adventures in space that he fit in between Revenge of the Sith and
space
A New Hope.
Racism. Those sand people.
That would be interesting if it was just a show like about him keeping the peace.
Yeah.
On Tatooine, where it's like kung fu. Like they
he's like Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yeah, it's like he walks and people, or alternatively, he stays in his hut and people come to him with their problems. They're like, Senor,
and it's like a talk show. He just talks to them in a really philosophical way. They sit there. It's like those. It'd be like a really tight show, really cheap to make, like 2 cameras.
It's like Between Two Ferns with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
But it's like really serious. So
Obi-Wan Kenobi Nights.
No.
Tatooine Nights with Obi-Wan
Kenobi. It's like
with Ben.
Also, no. It's just him on a chair and people call in.
It's like Frasier. It's like talkback radio.
You know what I mean? It's like people call in. It's like, like the midnight channels where it's like the psychics talking on TV. It's like that caller. It's like some guy calls up
and he's like,
no. He's
this
like,
is Ben Kenobi. You're on the air.
Kenobi. And someone's like, oh, my son, I don't know. And he's like, your son is in the canyon across the ridge.
Yeah.
He uses the Force.
Reach deep into the Force to solve your problems.
It's like, what do I do about my husband? He gambles a lot. And he's like, he just talks him through with his Jedi ways.
Oh, man. Send us a check.
That's what I want to watch. Can you imagine that? And it's like,
this is the stuff that should be on Disney Plus.
It's like a normal. It's like that episode of Seinfeld where Kramer gets the set from the talk show.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like the show starts with just the outside of his stone hut, and he walks in. And it's
you know what? His hut, where he lived in the original movie, that's actually a set, and the camera pulls back, and there's lights and microphones. If you're not going to do the serious, character-driven drama that we want, just go full parody. You might as well. So Taika Waititi, maybe, he'd be a good choice.
Maybe do a show, Taika.
Yeah.
Go full crazy mode with it. Go full Mel Brooks.
No, maybe don't go that far. It's already Spaceballs level. How bad can it get?
Yeah, it's already self-parody. You might as well just do it. It's logical conclusion. Jetpacks we finally saw to complete his Mandalorian armor and his Boba Fett look. He's got the jetpack. That action scene at the end where Moff Gideon is escaping in a TIE fighter and he flies up. That was one of the better action scenes from Star Wars in the last 5 years. New Star Wars action hasn't been good. Mandalorian has some pretty cool action scenes, I think.
I suppose we should talk about the shocking finale reveal.
There are 2 shocking finale reveals. I'll start with one. So in the Tatooine episode, which also I didn't like, I think was the weakest episode, that young bounty hunter guy was terrible. I don't know that actor, but he was terrible.
Ming-Na Wen was cool.
Yeah, but then they kill her off.
Yeah, that's very disappointing. Yeah. She could have been a good
She should have been
a
recurring villain. She should have been an old villain of Mandalorian.
Is it confirmed she dead? Is she confirmed dead?
You see her body a while after they leave.
Yes.
Cyborg. She can come back a cyborg or a clone. Anyway.
Yeah.
They should have had a thing between her and Mandalorian, they used to be lovers or partners or something, and then she should come back every season and fuck shit up. Anyway, at the end of that episode, you see her body, and you see a mysterious figure that you don't know who he is crouch down and inspect her body. And then in the finale, the Mandalorian, or Mandy as I like to call him, he finds Boba Fett's signal, the symbol on Baby Yoda's neck.
Oh yeah, and he's like, I thought I lost that.
Yeah, now it's been a while since I watched the show. I can't remember if he didn't give. No, we didn't see anyone give Baby Yoda that, right?
No. So Baby Yoda just has it around his neck when he's in the cockpit.
Yeah,
and then Mandy goes, I thought I'd never see that again. And then he touches it, but then he's you hold on to that, and he lets Baby Yoda suck on it.
So is that implying that it was just on the ship?
I'm implying it means that Baby Yoda picked it up outside of the ship and then just had it on him, and then Mandy didn't notice until they were already in the cockpit.
So I thought they were implying that, he somehow got it and that Boba Fett's going to show up. and that the main, villain of the
Did
series
Boba
is gonna
Fett
be-
die? I can't remember. Did Boba Fett die in the originals?
So he goes in the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah.
In the EU, he crawls out and he has a long life and career afterwards in the books and comics. Now that all the EU is scrapped, we assume that Boba Fett's dead, like just in the new Disney canon.
Yeah.
But with this show, they can easily bring him back.
Yeah. I mean,
I
don't know if-
as much as I love Boba Fett, they shouldn't. But
Yeah.
it looks like they might be doing it. Now, the Boba Fett signal is not just Boba Fett's symbol, like other.
yeah.
So maybe they're hinting at something else.
Yeah, but
Maybe it's
knowingly-
like a clan insignia.
Yeah.
but it's a hint for a reason.
Yeah,
as well.
especially if you have a mysterious figure, in an episode. So I hope they don't do it, but it looks like they're probably going to do it. And the thing is, though, is because it's in the Disney canon, which is in the prequel canon, which is in the special edition canon, he's going to have to be a Kiwi.
Not necessarily. You know what? Well, let's just wait and see on that one.
Yeah,
Because
I
he'll
really
be
hope
played
they
by
don't.
Taika Waititi.
And that's I was going to say. I'm like, well, you already got Taika Waititi, so. But Daniel Logan, who played Boba Fett in Attack of the Clones, little 10-year-old Boba Fett, he's been really championing for the role. He really wants it. I don't really care. I don't want to see Boba Fett back.
Sure. He can play the character, but he can be dubbed.
Yeah, he can't voice it. But yeah, like I said, Star Wars is dead. I don't fucking care anymore. Do whatever the fuck you want. Yeah, and I guess the second reveal is that Moff Gideon, so one thing we were talking about in the first 3 episodes was that all the stormtroopers were dirty, and I was just like, yeah, I get it, but also, And I'm like, Disney erased all the EU canon with the Imperial Remnant and the years of civil war and infighting and all that, just so they could have, 1 year after Return of the Jedi, the Imperials were wiped out. Like, that was their new canon. And it's like, now this show is introducing that there are still some Moffs around.
Yeah.
And I like how Moff Gideon shows up with his troops who are all clean, and he has much more well-equipped.
Yeah.
And he has his TIE fighter and stuff. So I thought that was kind of cool. But then, yeah, he is trying to get Baby Yoda, and then he's in his TIE fighter, and
Mandy takes him out.
Mandy uses his jetpack to take him out, and he crashes.
Yeah.
And then, you see, a blade cut through the hull of the TIE fighter.
I never got that.
And then-
yeah. So I never actually read anything about the Darksaber in the books or read any of the comics because I'm only up to Children of the Jedi.
Well, this is actually, I think it's prequel stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about. Because the book after Children of the Jedi is called Darksaber. And it has a character which creates a super laser with a lightsaber hilt,
yeah,
which they call the Darksaber.
Yeah, as far as I know, that's not the same thing.
So there's two different blades with lightsaber hilts called Darksabers in the Star Wars canon.
Yeah, I think...
I mean, granted, Children of Jedi and Darksaber is no longer canon.
Yeah. But I think from memory is that the Mandalorians, which are a warrior race who were, thousands of years before the movies take place, were they were like warriors. It's like their culture was to conquer other worlds. Like that was their way. That this is the way. And they, of course, came into conflict with the Jedi, who were at the height of their power at the time.
Yeah.
In the old Republic days, Knights of the Old Republic, and all that stuff. And so the Mandalorians became fierce enemies of the Jedi, and they developed all their jetpacks and flamethrowers and all their cool weaponry and armor as a way to combat the force powers of the Jedi. And the Mandalorian warriors were the only non-force sensitive force users who could go toe to toe with Jedi.
like Boba Fett, kinda. Like he's a pretty fierce fighter. People don't just fuck around with Boba Fett.
Well, I mean, he's only ever gone up against Luke in that shootout, and then he gets taken out by a blind Han Solo, which, I'm still not sure how I feel about that. As much as I love Return of the Jedi. Anyway, what was I saying?
Yeah, the development of the weapons.
The Mandalorians were such fierce warriors that there were only non-Force users who could go toe-to-toe with a Jedi and defeat them. And this, thousands of years of conflict, Sith got involved, and the Mandalorians allied themselves with the Sith, and then the Sith revealed that they were using the Mandalorians as puppets, and the Mandalorians broke away, and yada, yada, yada. Eventually, one of the Mandalorians was Force sensitive and became a Jedi and created the Darksaber, which was like a black bladed
Yeah.
lightsaber. And that kind of restored the...
And that is in canon, right?
That's in canon, yes. This is all explored in the Clone Wars and Rebels animated series, which is canon and which is connected quite heavily with Mandalorian, even though it started, I think, in the old comic books.
Yeah.
So this kind of repaired the rift between the Jedi and the Mandalorians. And, thousands of years go past, all this crazy shit happens. And eventually the Darksaber becomes the symbol of the leader of the Mandalorian people, the Mandalore.
Yeah.
So if you hold the Darksaber, you are the leader, you are the Mandalore. So then some stuff happens in Clone Wars with Darth Maul, and he gets it, and then they get it from
Of course he
him.
does.
Yeah, and then some stuff happens in Rebels, and one of the Mandalorians gets it back and becomes the leader again, and unites the Mandalorians who were in Civil War. Then the events of the original trilogy happen, and The Mandalorian, the new show, introduces the idea that the Empire wiped out Mandalore, and that's why the Mandalorians are spread across the galaxy and, don't take off their helmets and all that. But Moff Gideon, they reveal he was one of the leaders of the Imperial forces that destroyed Mandalore. And so it's kind of cool that he kind of stole their scepter or their the symbol of their leadership.
Yeah.
So he's kind of what's the word?
Usurped it?
Yeah, usurped it. Yeah.
Appropriated it for himself?
Yeah, I like that. He defanged them or whatever.
Yeah.
He disgraced them. So even though I hate the fact that there's a lightsaber in a show that shouldn't have a lightsaber, I like the idea that he's going to be a main enemy of Mandy.
Yeah.
Also, we should mention that Mandy's name is revealed. And I can't remember what it is.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is.
Din Djarin?
Something like that, yeah. We'll just
Man.
call me Pedro for short.
Pedro, Mandy's better. Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
So I like
2.
I like the idea of the main villain of the series is going to be the guy who destroyed the culture of the Mandalorians, and Mandy, the main character, it kind of has to go up against the guy who destroyed his home world or destroyed his adoptive world. And
We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to do any of that good shit, but we'll see.
they'll do it. They'll do it, but like I said, they'll do it in the framework of Monster of the Week, Adventure of the Week. Baby Yoda does cute stuff.
It's going to end up with the ultimate fight in season 2. It's going to be a lightsaber duel between Baby Yoda and Moff Gideon. Look, you know it's coming. Flipping. Are you ready for more Yoda flipping around?
James is sitting here in the studio being like, I can't take it anymore.
I'm conflicted. I'm like, as much as that would suck, that would kind of be...
He's here to drink from sippy cup and fight motherfuckers, and he's all out of sippy cups. You know in Dark Crystal when
when Rian is fighting the...
No, when what's his name? The Paladin.
Hup.
When Hup sees what's her name getting attacked,
and he drops his drink.
Yeah, and it'll be like that.
Baby Yoda's drinking his little cup.
Yeah, and then he sees Mandy getting attacked by Moff Gideon.
Slow motion.
He just drops his sippy cup.
And then Force Lightning.
His little puppet face gets real mad.
That actually, I'm calling it now. There's going to be a scene either in the second season
or in
Gideon. Either in the second season or a later season. Moff Gideon is about to has defeated Mandy, is about to kill him, like probably with the Darksabers pointing it at him. And then Baby Yoda uses all these force powers and like either chokes him or lifts him up and throws him away. They're definitely going to do that.
Yeah, there has to be. And
all right, refer back to this episode on season 2 review.
You won't know it's Baby Yoda either because it'll be a little figure in a hood. You know what I mean? And then no. Moff Gideon's like, what was that? And then the hood falls back and you see it's Baby Yoda and he's like, bah.
I just thought of this. I don't know if we talked about this. Baby Yoda, he's so cute when he walks in little waddles, but it doesn't make sense because he's so small. And Mandalorian could take like 100 steps before Baby Yoda takes 10. I'm like, why doesn't the Mandalorian have like a little like
a baby?
What it's called, a caboose? What's it called? That little like.
Because how's he going to teach Baby Yoda to be a man if he's carrying him around all the time?
He needs. Those ones where you have like a harness on your front and you have the baby sitting in the front.
But
like,
that any one of those. And like this goes back to my point we talked about in the first 3 episodes. I'm like, this if they want to do this Adventure of the Week, Monster of the Week show, I'm like, that's fine. But take it to its extremes
Yeah.
where there's like no dialogue and it's like
That'd be cool.
It's Lone Wolf and Cub, it's Samurai Jack. It's just a man with a baby like tied in a bundle across his back with like a spear, and it's just like running through the jungle like fighting alien monsters. And you can even set it in like the old like before the Old Republic era, like early Mandalorian culture. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Send us a check.
Yeah, I'd love that a lot. Like no dialogue, like all tension.
Yeah.
Black
Like
and white.
full,
Doesn't even have to fight people. It can be monsters.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
like,
like
survival,
full, like full Gendy Tartakovsky Samurai Jack primal, like just like no words, just like fighting, or take it to what we were talking about. Take it to the hour-long
drama,
character-driven drama.
Yeah.
There was that episode where he's defending the village, and it's like a Samurai Jack. It's like a Seven Samurai kind of thing. But I didn't like that episode either. I was like, it felt
I thought
cheap.
that episode
and
have some benefits. I like the war scene where they were trying to take down like the AT.
I didn't like the ATST because they made it move like an animal. I'm like, the ATST is a robotic thing. It moves in a certain way. It's being piloted by a person. But they made it move like it was sentient.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. I'm like, Disney, they don't know what Star Wars is. They don't understand it. They're just making it up as they go along. You know? Like, if it was a big monster, that would be cool. I have to take down the monster. But it's not. It's ATST. We know what ATSTs are. We've seen the other movies. So, okay, how do we take make it around that? You know, don't make it about, the ATST doesn't want to get its feet wet and starts going, ooh, 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 you know.
But I thought that was cool.
Yeah, fuck it. Fuck this show, you know? I love this show and I fucking hate it. Because it's Star Wars. Yeah. And like I said, Star Wars is shit now. Fucking hell. I'm so conflicted. I love Baby Yoda, but I don't want him there. I don't.
Yeah.
You know? I want that little Baby Yoda toy, but I don't want him in my show.
Not in the damn TV.
Yes, I want him... See, because at the end of the day, he's a toy. He's not a character.
Yeah.
He's a meme.
Yeah. It's like the opposite of Transformers, right? It's like toys are so popular they made it into... not sorry.
Well, they
wanted
cartoon,
to market the toys, so they made the cartoon.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you've got the cartoon. Now make us the damn toys.
Yeah. Also, like, I didn't like Cara Dune carries this huge machine gun. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. But then they're trying to get through the sewer grate, which looks like exactly like the grate in the original Death Star. I was like, fucking come on. Like, just come on. And she's shooting at it like, and there's like not even a scratch on it. And I was like, come on, man. Like, fuck off.
But that goes like
you don't think
but
that...
you're using... This is something... Now, I've problems with this with all Star Wars properties. But all guns are shooting the same laser shit, yeah? So why do you need a big gun? Like, if you have the technology for small... The only thing you're getting is the rate of fire.
But that's the thing is, like, the original Star Wars, from what we see, without any extra material reading, blasters are all quite similar. There might be different power levels, but we don't really see that.
Yeah.
It's only turbo lasers and, X-Wing cannons and TIE fighter cannons that have more power, obviously.
Because they have a bigger...
and,
a bigger barrel
equating it to real-life aircraft, the calibers and the giant,
But, like, in terms of handguns, like, they shoot the same...
Yeah, then you get the prequels and the sequels and this stuff, where they start introducing stuff like machine guns and Gatling guns, and I guess that increases the rate of fire. But then I'm like, well, that kind of changes what Star Wars is, changes what the blasters are. Yeah, now you've got to this point where, it's just like, what does it even matter if she's got a machine gun if it's not going to do shit? And again, it's because this show is a kid's show where it's like, oh, they're in a tight spot, and let's not have a creative way to get out of the situation. It's just like, oh, we can't get through the sewer grate. And then IG-11 breaks open anyway, or I can't remember, the thermal detonator or something. So it's like, it's just, whatever. Yeah. So all the best stuff is the Mandalorian stuff.
I mean, it would have been a different type of reveal. But if Baby Yoda was with them and he lifted the grate up and then they got in and put it down, and then Moff Gideon hacks through the grate by using the Darksaber.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't like how Carl Weathers comes back at the end and, he's like, yeah, you shot me, but everything's cool now. I was like, oh, well, again, this show is such a cheap,
it's a Disney
kids show.
Such a,
It's like everything's so simple to a fault, I think. Like I said, simple is not a problem. Simple is good. It's why people enjoy the show. But it's to a fault, I think, with The Mandalorian. Where it's just every episode is just like, he goes here, fights the guy, the end. Like, there's no real creative thinking behind it.
Yeah.
What else? I think that's it.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't like that Tatooine episode. We're going back to Tatooine again. Boring. It's all empty and shit. I was like, this feels cheap. I know they're trying to make a point about, Jabba the Hutt died and now all the commerce is gone. I'm like, fuck that. There would have been another Hutt.
Yeah, I want a Hutt show.
Yeah, and that's like to tie into your point before, like, as much as I hate Solo, as much as I have problems with Mandalorian, it's like the Hutts in the original EU, they were a crime syndicate. They were a family, like the Hutts owned or controlled large, vast space.
like mafia.
Like they're like a species, but also they're
a species of crime bosses, pretty much.
Pretty much.
And so to have one of them show up, even though it's not Jabba in the Solo movie, to have one of them show up in Mandalorian, that wouldn't be fan servicey.
No, because
it makes sense because
like
they're
the Mandalorians are operating. The Mandalorians could have somewhat of a don't ask, don't tell relationship with the Hutts in as much as. Because the Mandalorians have to stay out of sight too.
Yeah. I mean, Mandy himself is a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would have crossed paths with a Hutt.
It wouldn't surprise me that the Conclave, turns a blind eye to some of the Hutt's feelings and they get shelter.
Exactly. So, yeah, I feel like Mandalorian definitely could introduce that later on. But that Tatooine, it felt so cheap and empty. And I'm like, you can't make excuses of, the Hutts aren't there anymore. Like, also, I didn't like how, I think it's Amy Sedaris' character. She has like all these pit droids. I'm like, prequel bullshit. She's not an interesting character. There's no development there. It's just she sits next to the ship because they need someone to look after Baby Yoda. I'm like, it's so cheap. You know what I mean? The writing is so cheap and kiddie and bullshit. Like I said, either go all full Samurai Jack and just have a quick action show, or go the full hour-long character-driven drama.
Don't half-ass it.
Don't pretend.
Go 100% in one direction and stick to it.
Exactly. Yeah, make up your fucking mind. I think that's it. I mean, I'm sure we could talk for another 5 hours about random shit and Baby Yoda memes. We finally got to see New Republic X-Wings.
Yeah, that's okay.
I mean, we haven't seen the New Republic since they got rid of the original EU, and the new Disney movies haven't shown, the J.J. Abrams movies, whatever, they haven't shown the New Republic. So, like, finally we got to kind of see them, in a way. Yeah. I think that's it. Obi-Wan show's going to suck. They're going to have fucking...
unless it's a talk show.
Unless they do that.
Get Jeff Goldblum to play Obi-Wan and have it be a semi-real life talk show with a real life guest spooking a movie.
And like Baby Yoda could be his like little sidekick.
Baby Yoda plays the drums.
He could be like his
Baby Yoda will play a saxophone.
Yeah. Oh, he could be his band leader?
Yeah.
No, they'd have the Max Rebo band from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the Baby Yoda could be his what's his name? Andy from the Conan O'Brien show.
Oh, yeah.
What's his name? Fuck, it's going to kill me.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum could be Obi-Wan, and he could be like, the Force is being gentle tonight. Like, a new guest comes in and they talk.
Andy Richter.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda could be Obi-Wan's Andy Richter.
So there'll be like a dirty joke and he spits out the water from his sippy cup. He's like...
Yeah, his whole bit is that he's always sipping from the little soup cup, and then every time Obi-Wan tells a joke, he spits it out and goes,
he'll gurgle. He's like,
I don't know. Oh man, fuck man, we can do this shit. It's easy. Come on, Disney, you're paying all these idiots fucking millions of dollars.
Pay these idiots
to fucking rip.
If you're gonna shit post on Star Wars, at least let us do it right.
Like, if you're gonna pay a bunch of rich Hollywood arseholes to rip coke and make up this shit, we can do it fucking easy. God damn, we'll even take a discount.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we'll wrap it up. Whose turn is it to sign off?
I don't know. Let's give it to Callum.
I think no. Callum was last week, so it's Nathan's turn.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't here last week.
Yeah. yeah, so I think we'll take a rest from Star Wars. Like I said, no promises. I'm sure when Obi-Wan news comes out.
Oh, look, we get talking about something and it relates back to Star Wars somehow.
But from now on, I'm going to try and retire the alarm. If Star Wars comes up, we'll make that point and then we'll move on. Maybe I should have it's a trap every time we mention Star Wars or something. But we'll take a break from Star Wars. We've got lots of other stuff to talk about, Witcher and Watchmen and
there's always something new.
Lots of other stuff.
Your regularly scheduled content.
Yeah. Oh, also, I didn't get to talk about my idea last week for my Han Solo trilogy, which I'll what's it called? Allow listeners not to have to go through that.
Oh, very good.
I'll leave you hanging. But I have ideas. They're good ideas too.
Alrighty, thank you for listening. Please like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Tuesday Review AU. Follow James on Instagram at Channel Drifter, where he talks about all the movies that we don't get to talk about on the show that he watches. You can find all of our previous episodes on your favorite podcasting app. If you like video games, check out Sunrise Arcade, where Callum, Jake, and myself talk about video game news and reviews. You can also check out Car Talk with Manny J for all your automotive and vehicle discussions. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the Tuesday Review on iTunes. It helps us a lot. Adios, cousins.